So this is the J&H Aerospace Fractal flight demo. So it's got a 1306 Emax red bottom, 950 milliamp 3S nanotech, I think. Just little 5-gram servos, little 9 amp ESC, that is the lower limit. Oh yeah, and a 4x1x4.1 APC prop. So this they don't show up right now, but it does have LEDs in it and a whole lot of wires. So even though it's 170 grams, it's about 15 more, I think, than the kit will build out to, especially if you don't cover the fuselage and you just seal it with something like dope. So obviously well under the 250 gram limit. If you put in FPV gear and a camera where the nose block is, you'll have a sub 250 gram FPV ship that'll fit in your backpack since it's only 18 inches in span. It'll fly for probably a good 20 minutes at about 1/3 throttle, because a plank is a fairly efficient wing because there's no drag from tail surfaces or anything like that. This motor is way undersized for the battery, but we can get away with it because the wing is so big, because it's a plank. All the flat surfaces are making lift, unlike a regular airplane. So yeah, I'm flying it in about 1 acre of space, just floating around. I'm gonna take up a little bit more room next time. I'm gonna do a top speed run here in a second, just to show that it does an honest 80 miles an hour, even though you're seeing it's relatively slow. I have UMXs that fly faster than this, even though this weighs about 3 times what your average UMX does. I do have my CG a little far back, so it's a bit pitch unstable. There's a bit of full throttle. There you go. But yeah, it flies like a little fighter jet. Come around. Rolls like a drill bit. It's pretty ridiculous. And then, even though that prop is fairly high pitched, it's just overpowered. It's got pretty good low end torque. So there's vertical, which is at about 30 miles an hour. So it's not lacking in any flight regime. This is the 5th generation of the plank. I've tried a bunch of different airfoils because part of the fun of a plank is that they'll hyperstall, which is basically the airplane stalls, recovers all the time. So it'll go through like one oscillation every, say, 3/4 of a second. So I've tried symmetrical, flat bottom, and then between 8 and 12% cambers. So I've settled on a symmetrical 12% camber airfoil, which has still left me with very good top speed, but it slows down better and it doesn't hyperstall as much. Every plank is gonna hyperstall very mildly, but this is the least, about as good as it's gonna get for one of these airplanes. So it's resulted in an airplane that you can still pull pretty hard. Like, if I had another airplane that was 170 grams and had this power system, this plank would outfly it in every flight regime. Slow speed, high speed, maneuverability. So that's the fun of a plank. And like I was saying earlier, with it being about 18 inches in span, and the fuselage about 16 inches, it'll fit in your backpack. So that results in an airplane perfect for travel. Say, Your average laptop is about 17 inches, or your average large laptop. And this is half throttle right now. I'm doing, I don't even know, 45 easy when I want to. But turn reversals, all that stuff are brilliant with such a high roll rate. I'm just incredibly happy with how this airplane's turned out. And I am cruising at about 25% right now. And this is a very happy cruise. So I've got a slow climb, so I'm not just dragging it along. An amp draw like this is probably, I don't know, less than 3 amps. So with a decent sized battery, you end up having very respectable flight times. That battery is in the front of the airplane, completely in front of the wing, and the only thing inside of the rest of the fuselage is the ESC and receiver. So if you want to do something like build a lithium ion pack using ground cells, you could have a stupidly large battery for ultimate flight time, FPV gear, all that stuff. Whole bunch of room. Yeah, there's full throttle turns. But you might be able to hear it kind of wobbles a little bit throttle wise, and that's that hyper stalling, which is actually barely noticeable by sight at full throttle. But I built a solid 8 planks in my total RC career and seen a whole bunch fly, and this is as good as I've ever seen one. But it flies like a very high energy 3D airplane when you want it to, and then you can just slow down, tootle around. If you enable your ESC brake, you also have a very efficient sloper, believe it or not. My ESC brake isn't enabled right now, so it doesn't glide incredibly well, but that relatively thin airfoil results in a very nice airplane to fly. Another feature of the plank, just like any flying wing, they don't stall and like drop the nose, they just mush. So let me come out and around. So that is full up elevator. So it just comes down at 25 degrees. So if you want to, you can land like that. If you're in grass, that kind of thing. I wouldn't recommend that in pavement, but grass is fine. Yeah, this is the J&H Aerospace Fractal, a sub 250 gram, 18-inch plank flying wing.